Hello, hello, hello. Leveled up lovers. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. I am so excited to have our second interview this week with Hala Fauzi.
Yeah,
did I say that right?
yeah,
And so excited because we dropped in yesterday and really got to prep for this interview. So Hala is an unconditional love practitioner and advocate. And she's also a coach. What I love about Hala is she doesn't necessarily consider herself someone who wishes to charge for her the gifts that she gives the people that she works with. She's just literally unconditionally wanting to support those who want more love in their life, who are exploring non-monogamy, and she really had some great wisdom for me even. And I'm actually going to go ahead and be a little bit vulnerable on this call and share an example of one of my struggles recently. So, but before we get into that, let's just be clear. The topic today is going to be 4 practices for healthy polyamory or relationships. So it doesn't,
yeah.
this applies to monogamy, polyamory, all relationships. And Hala is going to be sharing 4 practices for healthy relationships in general. But we'll have a lean towards non-monogamy. But and also, if you can hear us, if you're with us right now, please drop a 1 or a comment or something to let us know that the sound is good. We always want to do a sound check because we found sometimes after the recording that the sound was bad, and we're just like, we should have asked. So let us know you can hear us. Let us know where you're joining us from, what city or country you're joining us from. Hala, our members now are over 3,100 members from 85 countries. So
Nice.
it's really awesome that we're super global, spreading the
Yeah.
love. And let's start with just a background on you. Now, we're going to spend about 25 minutes just dropping in, and then we're going to move to the Open Relationship Academy and dive deeper into the 4 practices. But
Okay.
I know you and I, we both journeyed, right? We're all, most of the people that are non-monogamous or polyamorous, most were monogamous and believed that this was the way and had struggled with monogamy and failed along the way and wondered what was wrong with them and what was wrong with
Mhm.
relationships. We had questions perhaps for many
Yeah.
years. So maybe you can share a little bit about your journey. I'll share a little bit about my journey, and then maybe you can coach me a little bit. It's good practice to for me to be vulnerable.
Sure. Um, well, I'm gonna keep it brief because I know we're limited for time. But I've always had this belief when I was younger that I don't believe in love because what society fed us as love, quote unquote love,
Yeah.
in romantic, literature and movies and songs didn't really resonate with me. I mean, it was I felt it was too limiting, and I never felt an authentic desire to participate in that. However, because there was no other option, I found myself what we call now serial monogamy in different relationships, one after the other, in which the longest one maybe lasted a year.
Right.
uh, and so I thought, okay, well, this is my, it's always like, there's a problem here, there's a problem there, and I just kept continuing trying, uh, and then I found myself between relationships, like when I'm not in a committed relationship, I was practicing polyamory before knowing there was a name for it, because I don't like to lie and I don't like to, hide. So I would have,
Mm.
what we call now friends with benefits, who are mostly typically ex-boyfriends or ex-lovers, but because I don't like to, you know, to play games, I would tell them, that we're just doing this for fun, and everybody was on the same page. So I found myself that I was practicing this sort of kind of solo poly, as we call it now, without knowing there was a name for it.
Yeah.
in hindsight, I found that these periods between relationships were actually the happiest I was. Like I was, there was, it's kind of ironic, but because even though I felt like it was not sustainable, or no, I believed at that time I didn't know it was sustainable. So culture and society and everything around me told me it was just not sustainable. So I was still looking for that one, happily ever after relationship. Until I was living in San Francisco, and I came across, I was, having lunch with a friend, and he mentioned, serial monogamy, polyamory. It's like, oh, it's a thing. And then my whole world changed, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. There was some kind of relaxation and relief in my body. I just felt, this is,
Yeah.
I'm not.
The moment you know you're not alone, right?
Yeah, it was such a, like, and then I realized it is sustainable. People have been, struggling like me for long. However, that was the beginning of my journey towards discovering unconditional love, because even though I knew it was a thing and I met other people, like-minded people, I still found it extremely hard to declare it, because I was so afraid of being judged as a slut, as easy, whatever. So I kept it kind of a secret, so to speak. Like I would not be open about it for the longest time, until I was in my, like, late 30s, early 40s, and I said, you know what, screw it. I'm tired of playing games, because I would meet somebody and then would date for like a month or a few weeks, and then I say, oh, by the way, I want an open relationship, and they would, like, run scared and accusing me of lying to them.
Yeah.
And so I decided, okay, you know what, I'm just going to own it. And then I started declaring it from the first date. This is what I want, this is who I am. And all of a sudden, it was like a miracle. All of a sudden, I started meeting the right people immediately. I started, like, like, meeting the right people was so effortless and so easy that I felt very sad that I wasted so much time trying to conform to something that's not really me, that's not authentically me. So it's like, and that was a huge lesson for me, to just accept my nature and go for it, regardless of my fear of judgment and my fear of
Beautiful.
being like an outsider and all that stuff. So, and I realized that what, the best thing we can do is to be true to our nature. And so that's why I'm becoming an outspoken person now, because if I can help one person not feel as lonely as I felt when I was struggling with that, then I feel that I've lived for a good reason.
Right. You're paying it forward.
Yeah, because
how long ago did you come to the Bay Area?
Sorry?
You said you came to San Francisco into the Bay Area. How long ago?
About 32 years ago. No, I came to the Bay Area in 1988.
So back and forth, you've been to the Bay Area more than once.
No, I moved to the Bay Area in '88, but I didn't live in San Francisco. I moved to San Francisco in 1994 or so.
Okay. Well, the point I was making is that I've been told that the Bay Area, San Francisco in general, is kind of like the polyamory capital of the U.S. It's the highest population for, yeah. So you got lucky in terms of more chance of being accepted, as opposed to being in, like, I don't know, Dallas, Texas,
For sure, yeah. I mean, I didn't know that before moving here. I moved here for work, and and I'm still here. So you can check out any time in life, but you can never leave. It's California, and I love it. Even though I actually have been traveling all over the world for the past 2.5 years, and loving that too. So I'm just passing through California at this moment, but I'm leaving next week to continue my open-ended journey around the world.
To Hawaii. It's so exciting.
Yeah. Tantra Festival.
So yeah, the Tantra Festival. So that's amazing. Thank you for the background. Thank you. Your background resonates for me, and I'm sure for many of our listeners, because there was a world that we all lived before we found ourselves emancipated to be ourselves, and we didn't know that there's a world that exists where actually what we want is legitimate. We're legitimately seeking unconditional love, and that means no conditions. That means that love just is. Love is a way of being.
Yeah.
And freedom is a big component of love and how we want to relate and share love.
Yeah.
And
And
So
the thing is
go
that
ahead.
love is its own reward. Like it's, you don't love. I mean, of course, there's a big difference between what society taught us as love and the true essence of what love is, and
Mm,
that's really what I want to emphasize and highlight in this talk to people, is that in order to practice unconditional love, we have to deconstruct what we learned from society,
right,
because when we start growing up and learning, how to survive and how to um, operate in this culture anywhere in the world,
yeah,
we learn to use love and sex as commodities to be
right,
traded for touch, for connection, for money, for children, for
sure,
safety, and that's totally fine, because the exchange of energy is the nature of how the universe operates, but it's not love. Love is this infinite resource that we're all born with,
right.
um, and it's probably the only resource that the more we give, the more we have. And
Hmm.
that's the distinction that I want to make before we continue talking about unconditional love. So, and I'm happy to dive into that more as
Yeah,
our conversation.
I want you to continue with that thought, love being infinite, but time and other resources being finite, and how we've been, you can speak to this, but how we've tried to merge these together, and that's why there's so much tension.
Exactly. So basically, what I want to remind everybody to get in touch with is this infinite resource, and I mean, we all have unconditional love in our life. Like, think of a parent loving their child, or how you love your best friend, or how you love your pet, or how you. So basically, these entities in your life where you love the person no matter what they do. You may not agree with what they do, but you still love them, and that's the unconditional love that I'm talking about. So if we can all tap into that resource of I love you, even though I might not be with you, or even though I might not agree with what you do, but I still love your essence, and I love the person that you are. So that kind of love is what I'm talking about, the infinite resource that we all have access to if and when we choose. The problem happens when we map this infinite entity onto finite human made constants like time and money and space and energy and all the stuff. That's the head space, like that's thinking, with the head. But if we go back to the heart doesn't know uh, finite resources. It just kind of gives because it enjoys giving. Like, as a human being, we all enjoy um, loving because it's very healthy. It makes us feel good. Just watch a happy baby interact with its surroundings. Or think of, for example, when you ran to your friend and said, "Hey, I'm in love." Was it because somebody loved you, or because you loved somebody? It's always
Mm,
because you love somebody, because that's what makes us feel high. Even if the person doesn't even know yet, you're still very excited, because that's the excitement that gives us life. Uh,
mm.
and that's the distinction I want to make. So,
It's a
uh,
very important distinction. Yes, it's so in many ways, this journey from the monogamous narratives, the
uh,
societal narratives, which, by the way, you're from the Middle East, I'm from the Middle East,
yeah,
but I've talked to women in Japan and China and all over the world.
yeah.
There's some a more embedded conservative structure that has so much um, hypocrisy. Like, at least in our free country, there's less hypocrisy, because over there, it's like women are treated as second class citizens.
Okay,
And
that's universal. I'm sorry to say.
what's that?
That's universal.
Well, from my travels and my experience, it's almost like let's if you go to Japan or China, it's like third
Uh-huh.
class citizens, right? Maybe in Europe and the United States, there's still inequality, but in some countries, it just goes deeper. At least from what my experience is, in
It's
terms of
more
like,
obvious, but it's definitely there. It's
yeah.
definitely more obvious in the third
So
world, especially. Uh, but
yeah.
women as a second-class citizen is a result of thousands and thousands of years of fear and scarcity culture all over the world. I've been
Mhm.
traveling all over the world, and it takes more subtle forms in different countries, especially in the West, but it's still there.
In some ways, what we practice, when it's done ethically, it is, in my opinion, another wave of feminism, where women are actually like people think, oh, well, polyamory is all about just men wanting to have their way. But there are many women like you that I know of that are actually leading the conscious non-monogamy, community, and are outspoken about how they are actually representing freedom for women. That they, because in many ways, monogamy didn't necessarily represent a lack of freedom for men, because for thousands of years they had their freedom, they had their girlfriend on the side. To this day, in many cultures, you're not allowed to get a divorce, but
Mm.
men can. It's understood that they have other relationships in these cultures and in other cultures. Women, they could suffer great risk if they have other relationships, right? So in many ways, this is an emancipation of that.
Yeah, I mean, um, I hate to make generalizations because each case is different. However, I do agree with you that patriarchy is definitely very oppressive to women, but I also find it very oppressive to men. Um, and I mean, I don't want to go into a huge discussion
Yeah,
about patriarchy here because we all know the sad and ugly side of that.
yeah,
But basically, for me, unconditional, like for example, when I say I'm polyamorous, polyamory is basically is it's all about love because it's called polyamory. Amory is love. It's not about
right,
sex.
right.
However, because of our kind of sex, how should I say it, sex hungry or the culture of oppressing the sexual energy in human beings makes us all very focused on that angle, even though polyamory is really much bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what it means is that the only love I'm willing to engage in is unconditional. Now, because we're humans, sex is part of the equation, but it's not the only focus.
Of course.
And so the real essence of unconditional love is owning our own self, like
Right.
emotions, thoughts, and body.
Right.
And you're right that owning one's body has been more of a right granted easier to men than women because of the historical patriarchal conditioning. But it's freeing for both
It is.
because
Yeah.
I have seen many instances within my circle of friends where the push towards opening a relationship was initiated by men, but then as soon as women experience that and experience the freedom and the love that comes with it, they actually they find that it's much better for them, and even though they were kind of maybe reluctantly
Going in. Yeah.
going in, they become the leader once they experience that freedom and that unconditional love. But it's a journey. Everybody's journey is different,
Yeah.
and that's why I hate to separate by gender. But yes, yeah, I mean, um, I do have uh, uh, a fear around how polyamory is perceived because most of the public images of polyamory shows uh, a man with multiple women, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and that brings images of women oppression, of polygamy, of misogyny, and all that stuff. And I totally resonate with that, and it bothers
Mm-hmm.
me as much as everybody. And that's why I'm outspoken because I really want to encourage women and more women to own their power and own their bodies and own their sexual power and really step up to the plate and realize that nobody can control their bodies except them. Nobody has a say on what they do with their time and body except them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm very passionate about that. And also um, my passion is to spread the knowledge of how we can live in love uh, and how we can get that exchange of energy out of the picture and just do whatever we want to do, whoever we want to